Hello, everybody, and welcome to chapter 32 of the book of Bereishit as we continue to travel through Tanach. Chapter 32 has 33 verses, and if you recall from the previous chapter in the Koran Sachs Chumash, which printed chapter 31 as having 55 verses, when actually the mainstream opinion is that there are 54 verses, therefore we are going to find that as we go through today's chapter, we are always going to be one verse behind the actual verse that we are reading. By way of introduction to this chapter, we pick up the story with Yaakov as he is approaching the land of Canaan, preparing to confront his brother Esav for the first time in many years. Hearing that Esav is approaching with 400 men, Yaakov divides his camp, prays for protection, and sends generous gifts ahead in an attempt to appease his brother. While finding himself alone at night, Yaakov wrestles with an angel until daybreak. He gets injured and refuses to release his opponent without a blessing, at which point he is given a new name, Yisrael, signifying struggle and perseverance. Yaakov names the place Peniel, recognizing that he has encountered the divine and survived. He leaves that encounter limping but transformed, and Yaakov continues from there to meet Esav in the next chapter. With that introduction in mind, let us turn to chapter 32, verse 1, which in the Koran Sachs Chumash is on page 212 and 213, and is actually verse 55 in that version. Verse 1, Vayashkem Lavan baboker, Lavan rose early the next morning, Vaynoshek levanav velivnosav. He kissed his grandchildren and his daughters goodbye, Vayvarches hen, and he blessed them. Vayelech vayashav Lavan limkomo. And Lavan then left to return home. Verse 2, Yaakov halach darko. Yaakov continued on his journey, Vayifkeu bo malachei Elohim, and he encountered angels of Hashem along the way. Verse 3, which is the final verse of Parshas Vayetze, Vayomer Yaakov, and Yaakov said, Ka'asher Ra'am, when he saw them, Machane Elohim zeh. This is Hashem's own camp. Vayikra Shem Hamakom Hahu Machanaim, and he named the place Machanaim. Who are these angels? One of the answers given by our rabbis is that these are the angels who are going to be accompanying Yaakov into the land of Israel. That brings us to the end of Parshas Vayetze, and we now turn to the beginning of Parshas Vayishlach with chapter 32, verse 4. Vayishlach Yaakov malachim lefanav. Yaakov sent messengers ahead of him, El Esav achiv, to his brother Esav, Artsa Seir, to the land of Seir, Sedei Edom, the country of Edom. Verse 5, Vaitzavo Sam Lemor, he instructed them, saying, Kos Somrun Ladoni le'Esav. This is what you should say to my lord, to Esav. Ko Omar Avdecha Yaakov. This is what your servant Yaakov says, Im Lavan Garti Va'echar ad Ata. I have been staying with Lavan, and until now I have remained there. And Rashi points out on these words, Im Lavan Garti, with Lavan I lived. He scrambles the letters of the word Garti to read Taryag, which is the numerical value of 613 and is the way that we colloquially refer to the Taryag mitzvahs, to the 613 mitzvahs. So Rashi reads this as, Im Lavan Garti, with Lavan I lived, Taryag mitzvahs shamarti, and yet I kept the 613 commandments while I was there, meaning I maintained true to my identity, true to my faith, true to my people, even though I was living with an individual who is incredibly corrupt and deceitful. Verse 5, Vayhili shor v'chamor, I've acquired cattle and donkeys, son and sheep, ve'eved v'shifcha, male and female servants, va'eshlecha lahagid ladoni limsochem be'enecha, and I'm sending this message to my Lord to find favor in your eyes. Verse 7, Vayashuvu hamalachim el Yaakov. When the messengers returned to Yaakov, Lemor, saying, Banu el achicha el Esav, we came to your brother Esav, v'gam holech likrosacha, he is on his way to meet you, v'arba meos ishimo, and he has 400 men with him. Verse 8, Vayira Yaakov ma'od, Yaakov was very frightened, Vayetzer lo, and it distressed him. Vayachatz es ha'am asher ito, he divided the people with him, Vesatzon, along with the flocks, Vesabakar, and the cattle, Vahagmalim, and the camels, Lishnei Machanos, into two camps. Verse 9, Vayomer, and he said, In Yavo Esav, el hamachaneh ha'achas v'yikahu. If Esav comes and attacks one camp, v'haya hamachaneh hanishar lifleitav, then the other camp will survive. Verse 10, Vayomer Yaakov, and Yaakov said, Elohei Avi Avraham, Elohei Avi Yitzchak, God of my father Avraham and God of my father Yitzchak, Adonai, Hashem, Ha'omer Elai, who said to me, Shuv la'artzecha, return to your land, u'lemoladatecha, and to your birthplace, ve'tiva imach, and I will deal well with you. Verse 11, Katonti, I am unworthy, mikol ha'chasadim, u'mikol ha'emes, asher asisa esavdecha, from all of the kindnesses and all of the faithfulness that you have bestowed upon your servant. Kiva makli avarti es hayarden hazeh, I had only my staff when I crossed the Yarden, when I crossed the Jordan River. Va'ata hayisi lishnei machanos, and now I have become two camps. Verse 12, Hatzileni na, please save me, miyad achi, from the hand of my brother, miyad Esav, from the hand of Esav, ki yarei anochi oso pen yavo v'ikani. I'm afraid he will come and kill us all. Aim al banim, mothers and children alike. What we are seeing here are two of the strategies that Yaakov employs in the build-up to his reunion with Esav. One approach is to split up the camp so that he'll be able to keep some of the people safe, and the second is to turn to Hashem in prayer. And as we have seen, he says, I am unworthy of everything that Hashem has done for him. But please save him, miyad achi, miyad Esav, from my brother, from Esav. And the Beis Halevi explains that this refers to two different threats that Yaakov feared. The first was the threat of Miyad Esav, from the hand of Esav, the violent, evil man who hated Yaakov for having taken his blessing. But Yaakov also feared the opposite prospect, Miyad Achi, from the hand of my brother. This was the fear that Esav would come with love and affection, and this also presents a danger, a spiritual danger, because if he approaches Yaakov as a brother, inviting him to closely interact with him, then there is a risk that once again he will be negatively influenced by the way that Esav behaves. So he is asking Hashem to save him from both a physical and a spiritual threat. Verse 13, Va'ata amarta, yet you said, Heitev eitiv, I will deal well with you. V'samti es zaracha kechol hayam, and I will make your descendants like the sand of the sea, asher lo yisafeh me'rov, which is too numerous to count. Verse 14, Vayalen sham balayla hahu, and he spent the night there. Vayikach min haba v'yado mincha le'esav achiv. Then he took from that which he had in his hand a tribute to Esav his brother. This is the third strategy to try and appease Esav, which is to send him lots of gifts. Verse 15, Izim Masayim, 200 female goats, Usyashim Esrim, 20 male goats, Rechelim Masayim, 200 female sheep, Ve'elim Esrim, and 20 rams. Verse 16, Gemalim, Menikos, Uvenehem Shloshim, 30 nursing camels and their young, Haros Abaim, 40 cows, Ufarim Asara, 10 bulls, Asonos Esrim, 20 female donkeys, Va'irim Asara, and 10 male donkeys. Verse 17, Vayiten biyad aladav, Ede levado. He put them in the care of his servants, each herd by itself. Vayomer elavadav, and he said to his servants, Ivru lefanai, go on ahead of me, Varevach tasimu bein eder uvein eder. Keep a space between the herds. And by doing this, he hoped that Esav would see this long train of animals approaching him, and this would impress him and excite him and would neutralize the threat. Verse 18, Vayitzav es harishon lemor, and he instructed the first group, saying, Ki ifgashecha Esav achi, when Esav meets you, u'she'elecha lemor, and he asks you, Lemi ata, to whom do you belong? Va'ana selech, and where are you going? Ulemi eile lefanecha, and who owns all these animals ahead of you? Verse 19, Va'amarta, then you must say, La'avdecha li Yaakov, they belong to your servant Yaakov. Mincha hi shlucha ladoni le'esav, they are a gift sent to my lord Esav. V'hine gamhu acharenu, and he is coming behind us. Verse 20, Va'itzav games hasheni, he likewise instructed the second group, games hashlishi, and the third group, games kol ha'holochim acharei ha'adarim le'mor, and all the others who followed the herds. Kadavar hazeh tedabrun el Esav, you shall say the same thing to Esav, b'motzoachem oso, when you meet him. Verse 21, Va'amartem gam, and you should also say, Hinei avdecha Yaakov acharenu, your servant Yaakov is coming behind us. Ki omar, because he said, Achapra fanav B'mincha haholeches lefanai. I will pacify him with these gifts that I am sending in front of me. V'acharei chen, and then afterwards, eref fanav ulai yisafanai. Then I will face him, and perhaps he will accept me. Verse 22, V'tavor hamincha al panav. So the gifts went on ahead of him, v'hulan balayla hahu b'machaneh, while he remained in the camp that night. Verse 23, Vayakam balaylahu. That night Yaakov got up, Vayikaches shtei nashav, and he took his two wives, Ves shtei shivchosav, and his two maidservants, Ves achalasar yeladav, and his 11 sons, Vayavor eis ma'avar yabok, and he crossed the ford of Yabok. And our rabbis pay attention to this verse and note that it only said 11 children. What about his 12th child? What about Dinah? And our rabbis point out that she is omitted from this verse because he was actually hiding her so that she wouldn't be seen by Esav because of the risk it would pose to her if Esav decided that he wanted to be able to marry her. So he actually hid her away. Verse 24, Vayikachem, Vayavirei mesanachal. He took them and crossed the stream, Vayaver es asher lo. And then he brought across all that he had. Verse 25, Vayivasei Yaakov levado. Yaakov was left alone. Vayeyavek ishimo adalos hashachar. And a man wrestled with him until dawn. Why was he alone? Our rabbis point out that he had actually crossed back over the stream to be able to retrieve some seemingly minor items that he had left behind. And in that vulnerable state, we're taught that it was an angel of Esav, the protective angel of Esav, that comes to fight and wrestle with Yaakov, and they fight throughout the night until the dawn of the next day. Verse 26, Vayar ki lo yachol lo. When this angel saw that he could not overpower Yaakov, Vayiga b'chaf yerecho. He struck Yaakov in his hip. Vateka kaf yerech Yaakov behe'avko imo. So that the socket of Yaakov's hip was strained as he wrestled with the man. Verse 27, Vayomer, and he said, Shalcheni, let me go, ki Allah hashachar, for dawn is breaking. Vayomer, and Yaakov said, Lo ashalechacha ki im berechtani. I will not let you go unless you bless me. Verse 28, Vayomer elav. So he said to Yaakov, Ma shemecha, what is your name? Vayomer, and Yaakov said, Yaakov, my name is Yaakov. Verse 29, Vayomer, and the angel said, Lo Yaakov yeyamer od shimcha. No longer will your name be Yaakov, ki im Yisrael, but Yisrael will be your name now. Ki sarisa im Elohim ve'im anashim vatuchal. For you have struggled with Hashem and with men, and you have prevailed. Verse 30, Vayishal Yaakov, and Yaakov asked, Vayomer, and he said, Hagida nashmecha, please tell me your name. Vayomer, and the angel said, Lama zeh tishal lishmi, why do you ask my name? Vayivarech oso sham, and he blessed him there. And our rabbis point out that this wrestling match between Yaakov and the angel of Esav represents as well the fight that each of us have with our Yetzer Hara, with that evil inclination, with that voice inside of us that's always trying to distract us and lure us away from things that we are supposed to be doing. And this conversation, where Yaakov asks the angel, What is your name? The response that he gets is, Why do you want to know my name? Meaning that's what the Yetzer Hara does to us. Whenever we try to confront and ask ourselves whether we are doing the right thing or not, we will often say, what does it matter? Why do you need to know? Just enjoy yourself. What have you got to lose? This is the ongoing wrestling match that we have each and every single day with those voices inside our head that try and distract us from being the best that we can be. Verse 31, Vayikra Yaakov Shem Hamakom Peniel. Yaakov named this place Peniel, Ki ra'isi Elohim panim el panim, for I have seen Hashem face to face, vatinotzel nafshi, and yet my life has been spared. Verse 32, Vayizrach lo Hashemesh. The sun was rising, kasher avares Penuel, as he moved on from Penuel, v'hutzalea al yurecho, and he was limping on his thigh because of the injury that the angel had given him. And finally, verse 33, Al Kain, therefore, lo yochlu b'nei Yisrael es gidan asher. The b'nei Yisrael, the children of Israel, the Jewish people, are not to eat the gid hanasher, the sciatic nerve, asher al kaf hayarech, by the hip socket, ad hayom hazeh, even to this day. Ki nogad b'chaf yerech Yaakov b'gid hanasher, because he struck Yaakov's hip socket at the sciatic nerve. Fascinating to end on that little insight as to why to this day it is still forbidden to eat the gid hanasher, the sciatic nerve. And that brings us to the end of chapter 32. In chapter 33, we will finally read of the reunion between Yaakov and Esav. I look forward to learning that with you then, but in the meantime, have a wonderful and meaningful day.